Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the second episode of Nest Talk, where we talk about some of the big gaming headlines and what's trending in the gaming media. I'm here once again with my man, Agent Deli.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, always a pleasure, man. Always nice to have you on. And so this episode's title it's gonna be "Welcome to the New Frontier" because we just had a big announcement from BioWare that that Mass Effect Remastered Edition, the trilogy that's being remastered, actually got more details on that, and we also had a trailer dropped. So I'm really excited to be talking about that. But first, we're gonna be starting off with our smaller stories. And so we have LG announcing in CES 2021 that they are making OLED screen technology available to computer monitors, not only to computer monitors, but to laptops as well. And so we actually had one laptop come out late last year called the Razer Blade Stealth 13. And this featured a OLED screen. But you know, Deli, anytime you add an OLED screen to a product, you know that it's going to be mad pricey.
Yep, the price is gonna go up at least $500.
Yeah. And are you familiar with like Mac monitors? Like, do you know how much those go for?
Yeah, I think the Mac. I don't even know what it's called, but I guess it's the 5K display is five grand, and then the stand is like an extra $100 or something like that.
Okay.
So it's like 500 after taxes or something like that. It's well over $5,000 for an entire setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've always I was always desired of or I always liked the idea that of an OLED display because it just has such a good contrast ratio and accurate colors. And when you want to watch a movie, for example, like on your computer, watching that on an LCD display, it's really not the same. And these days, man, like I have been hooking up with my other Twitch friend, and we usually
Mhm.
do movie nights every Fridays.
Sorry.
What?
The phrase hooking up with your Twitch
Yeah.
friend is
All right, my bad.
sorry,
Yo,
you were linking up. You were linking up. Yeah, you were meeting up with your Twitch friends. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you get what I'm saying, guys,
I
right?
understand.
So,
I don't applaud you on your choice of words. I couldn't hold it in.
all right, yeah, all right, my choice of word was kind of sketch. Okay, all right. So what I'm trying to say is that like I we meet up on Discord every Friday nights, and we do usually do movie nights. And watching a movie on an LCD screen, it's not the same as watching it on a TV. Like when you talk about looking at darker scenes, especially
Mhm.
where it's like it feels like the blacks are like gray on an LCD display.
Yeah.
And so it's just not the same, man, when you're watching a movie on an LCD screen.
Yeah, when you have more accurate colors and better contrast ratio, you definitely have a lot more immersion when it comes to films. Show up properly and they're not gray. The sky looks better. Scenes that are obviously meant to be dark actually look proper. So it's like, you're still able to see all the details. Versus like when you're watching it on like a standard panel or like a TN panel, it's like everything's like brightly lit, even though like you ever watch a movie where it's like it's definitely nighttime but it doesn't feel like nighttime because the colors aren't properly represented.
Sorry, can you say that one more time? Sorry, but
Like when you're watching on like a TN panel or like an LCD, like all
yeah.
the blacks aren't properly represented, so you're watching a movie and it's like a nighttime scene and everything looks brightly lit still.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't really notice that. Like, I just feel like it is a bit blurry in the
Mhm.
darker scenes. Like, I don't really see that, it's is it I don't really see the brightness factor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it is a definitely exciting prospect to have OLEDs finally on a computer monitor. Only if they make the price relevant, because like I wouldn't pay anything, like for me, I wouldn't pay anything over 500 for a monitor. I think that's way too much. And like if these joints go around for $2,000, like that's
Which
just crazy right
I
there.
think that's a pretty reasonable price for like new technology and like, that kind of stuff, especially if they're going for like the gaming specs, the 144 hertz, like 4K. I definitely feel like it's going to be well over $2,000 for a monitor of this caliber. Obviously, over the next 4 to 5 years, that price will go down, but I'm thinking it's going to be around the $1,500 mark for the next couple of years. I would be thoroughly impressed if LG can come out with one that's like $800.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so let's go into the story. So, as part of the CES LG 2021 announcements,
Hmm.
the company just announced the LG Ultrafine OLED Pro monitor, which is a 31.5-inch 4K screen. And this actually features individual dimming of all 8 million pixels. That's something only an OLED phone or a TV can do. And actually, I just got I just got a Sony 4K TV, and that actually has very good, individual dimming. It's really nice, and the contrast is very nice. And so to get something like that on a computer monitor, it's just something. It is very appealing. This article goes into talking about based on some of LG's previous ultrafine monitors, which have been over $1,000. And also, if you're given the fact of the OLED technology, this is going to be, way more costly. So it's looking like, maybe this monitor may be over $2,000, which is really ridiculous in my opinion. But hopefully, as the years go on, it does go to a reasonable price.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be one of those monitors that they offer in the beginning to see it like kind of test the market and you know I'm not gonna say a prototype, but it's like new emerging tech. So Gen 1 of a new emerging tech is definitely going to be a lot more expensive, like you see in the Samsung
Hmm.
Flip, or I think it's called the Flip. But the foldable Samsung phone, like the first rendition was like actually $2,000, and then the second one is a lot better and it's a little bit cheaper in price. And I think that, like I said earlier, as the years go by, you'll see a more normal curve when it comes to pricing versus products. And of course, we'll see more variety in products too. So we'll see smaller screens. We'll see like 1080p or 1440p monitors. So it definitely is one of those things that they're starting from the top and going down. At least I feel that way.
Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah, hopefully, this, hopefully they do make it at a certain point, maybe around 2 or 3 years from now, that,
Hmm.
OLEDs become very cheap. But we'll see what happens. And so we're going to be moving on to our other small news headline. And so Santa Monica Studios actually came out and they announced that they're going to be releasing the God of War Remastered, or it's an enhancement patch. And this is basically a 60 frames per second patch, and also comes with 4K checkerboard resolution. Now, I'm not too familiar with checkerboard resolution. Like, is this a good like I'm not sure if this is like, it's not like native 4K, right? It's like an upscaled version.
Yeah, it's an upscaled version, and I think the most so it takes like I think this is going to take way too long to explain, but it's basically splits like two different frames and then renders like one frame and then like one frame. It extrapolates that information and then it um packs the checkerboard. I can't really use the term to define the definition. Anyway, it splits a bunch of pixels together and upscales it in a little bit more of a fancy way. It's very, very awesome technology. Personally, to me, as a developer, I think it's an awesome technology because it allows us to hit targets like 60 FPS and
Hmm.
4K, um, or up to 4K. I guess that's the advertising term. It allows basically the best of both worlds, right? Quality and performance. This is something that a lot of consumers, and yeah, a lot of consumers like, and a lot of consumers want, and that's just something that you'll see on the internet all the time. Like PS5 should do 60 FPS, PS5 should do 1080p, 60 FPS. We'd rather want that than 4K 30, right? So now with checkerboard resolution, and especially since not everybody is playing on a monitor or playing like 1 foot or half a meter in front of their displays, it's very hard to tell like native 4K and checkerboard 4K, right? So at the end of the day, what's important is that it hits both check marks, like quality for the consumer, and then frames, yeah, frames for the consumer as well too. And that's important to deliver a good product that makes everybody happy. And I think that in this day and age, I think that it's definitely possible to hit native 4K along with 60 FPS. But also that means that games aren't going to be as high quality as we would like them to be. So this is kind of like this middle ground where we're allowed to boost quality of assets and also still hit, the 4K or close to 4K target along with getting 60 FPS. And I think that's what we're seeing here in the remat or the enhancement patch for God of War, is that obviously the game could run at 4K at 30 FPS.
Yeah.
Or it can run at 4K 60 FPS, or it can run at alternatively, if you don't have a 4K display, it can run at 60 FPS at 1080p or 1440p or whatever display that is just supported on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah. And God of War 2018 was definitely a classic, and it kind of reminded me of Dark Souls in a way, especially if
Mhm.
you played it on the harder difficulties. And man, the hardest difficulty is no joke, bro. Like I wouldn't
Yeah,
even touch that. It's crazy.
I think the mechanics in the game are absolutely wonderful. I think the game is sets a new standard in action adventure art, action adventure games, and I can't wait to see what Sony Santa Monica is cooking up for the second one. But right now, at the moment, the enhancement patch is gonna tide everybody over on before they drop the sequel sometime this year, next year? Question mark.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes, definitely exciting, but unfortunately, I don't have a PS5 at the moment.
Same, same. I don't have one either.
Yeah, it feels bad, man. But hopefully they do sort out their manufacturing and their chip manufacturer pulls through. So, hopefully I do get one soon.
I heard from a source of mine that they're going to be in stores around April time. So I can't confirm or
Mm,
deny how, like, on the broad range, because obviously you live in a different region than I do. But I can't confirm whether or not that holds true for your region. But it should be, from what she told me, it should be pretty reliable.
yeah. All right, that sounds promising. Hopefully I do get one by April. And I actually do have a friend with who does have a PS5, so
Mhm.
I'm definitely gonna I'm definitely gonna contact him to try to get those PS5 exclusives, those PS Plus games
Yeah, yeah.
that are exclusive. So I'm definitely not gonna be missing out on the PS Plus games. So I do have a friend with one, and yeah. All right, so we're gonna be moving on to our main topic, one of our main topics. And so BioWare came out this week and they actually dropped a new trailer for Mass Effect Remastered Legendary Edition. And we have also many more details on the remastered edition. And so we have here it's going to be releasing with enhanced visuals, which scales up to 4K. And this includes enhanced models, enhanced shaders, FX lighting, as well as you're also going to be experiencing all 40 DLC from all three games. So this is definitely exciting news. Like, I remember when back in my 360 days, like this was one of the games where I was like mad hooked on my Xbox. And like when I first saw this world, it was just like breathtaking. And like when I first went into the Citadel, it was just
Mhm.
very awe-inspiring. And like, at the time I wasn't really too into RPGs, but when BioWare came on the scene, like that really opened my eyes on like the RPG genre and their amazing storytelling, their amazing characters. And yeah, did you have any good memories with playing Mass Effect 1?
I had honestly I didn't like Mass Effect 1, I'm gonna be honest with you. Mass Effect 2, I
No
think I
way.
felt like Mass Effect 1 was clunky. I liked Mass Effect 2 a lot more. Personal opinion. Personal opinion.
Yeah, to be honest, like I somehow I enjoy the clunkiness. Like
Mhm.
I don't know, it had like it's unique, very unique flair to it. It's like I really like the sci-fi. It's and the world building. That's a very very
Yeah, the
cool. And
characters, the crew members were probably my more favorite one. I think interacting with them was better than or taking them into battle and hearing them, riff off of Shepard and everybody else in the crew. It definitely feels like it was an organic crew. Like everybody
hmm
was organic, and I definitely think that that was something that carried on to future generation of games. Obviously, the first Mass Effect released in like I think like 2007 or 2008. And then you can definitely see its influence down the line with like games like Fallout, Skyrim that came out a couple of years later, Witcher
yeah.
3, all those voice dialogue options, all those side characters were definitely fleshed out and given a lot more opportunity to be on screen. All of that extra stuff, we can definitely see a lot of it being honed in the original Mass Effect trilogy. And then, of course, that influence is spread across the industry.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great for everybody who has nostalgia for Mass Effect, and I think it's great that this is all bundled in a $60 package for anybody who hasn't played it originally, and then of course is able to play it at like better visuals, 4K, faster frames, that kind of deal, higher frame rate, all of that extra stuff. I definitely think this is one that is going to launch our new generation with a lot of nostalgia and a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, this franchise, especially the first game, it really made my early days of high school feel very special. And like at that time, like I had a lot of free time, man. It was just a good time, just exploring this world. And like I remember, man, like after every mission, I always made it my priority to speak with Ashley. Like, yo, call me a simp, but I don't care. Call me a simp, but yo, Ashley was bae in this game, man. Like,
I mean, you act like we weren't all doing the same thing, as teenagers. So, I can't say I wasn't. Ashley, then number two priority was Garrus.
oh, okay, yeah. I really messed with all of these characters, man. Like, they all had a really good backstory, and talking to Liara,
Mhm.
Ashley, Rex, and also Garrus. Like, all those characters were really fleshed out. It was a very cool time. It was a very personal. It felt very personal speaking with them.
Mhm.
And so, with the visual enhancements, I did see a few screenshots, and it definitely looks very promising. They did retouch the environments and like the background art. It looks absolutely fantastic. And like the lighting is really caught my eye as well. It's a very nice remaster.
It definitely feels like, or it definitely looks like there's a lot of love put into it. And of course, it's a beloved franchise to BioWare. There's a lot of BioWare magic into it.
hmm
So let's look forward to it. I think it comes out in May, like
Yeah.
about halfway through May. So like I said, let's just hope that this year kicks off with a lot of nostalgia. And I think we need it after season 2 of COVID has started. So,
Yeah, man. Hopefully, things get well with COVID,
mhm.
by hopefully by the second half of this year, things go back to normal. But I do have faith in BioWare. I think they are really gonna do a good job with this remaster, and I'm definitely excited to go over Mass Effect 1 again, especially with all these enhancements. And I can't wait to go back to the world and speak with my girl Ashley.
She'll be there waiting for you, I promise.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so we're gonna be moving on to our next story, which is
Mhm.
actually the Medium just launched last Thursday on Game Pass,
Yep.
and this did launch on PC as well as Xbox. So I am going to be talking about my impressions as well as going over a few Metacritic reviews.
Yeah. I haven't played it yet, so I will sit silently and listen to you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna get right into the Metacritic reviews. And so I'm gonna get into this one by Game Over Online. So it says here, if you're a fan of older adventure games like Siberia or Still Life, I did actually hear about Siberia. Like I did hear, I did see this actually on the Nintendo store. But when I looked at the screenshots, I don't know, I just was kind of turned off by it. Like the trailer didn't pull me in at all for some reason.
Mhm.
But anyways, yeah, so if you're into adventure games like Siberia or Still Life, the medium was made almost specifically for you. If you're an old school survival horror fan who doesn't think the genre's done better than Silent Hill 2 in 20 years, the medium is very much in your wheelhouse. If you're not in either one of these categories, I'm not sure if you'll get past the first 20 minutes. For me, it's a 90% score because I'll be thinking about this one for a while, but I can't give it any more than extremely qualified recommendation.
Mhm.
So, Deli, have you actually played the older Silent Hill games?
Yeah, actually, Silent Hill 2 is a game that so like on a personal project, I'm making like a horror game, and Silent Hill 2 is like one of my inspirations. I think I absolutely love that game, and everything about it is just from mechanics to atmosphere, everything about it is just wonderful. So I'm in the pool where I believe that like a game like Silent Hill 2 has not been outdone in the last 2 decades.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I didn't really play any in the Silent Hills, but I did
Hmm.
hear some good things about it. But what I really liked was the older Resident Evil games, and I think this game with the isometric camera and the controls, it reminded me of Resident Evil. It gave me heavy old school Resident Evil vibes from this one, and I definitely think it has a lot of promise. So I am in about 2 hours in the game so far,
Okay.
and it is an interesting game in my opinion because like it talks about some clues you find in the world, like you find some of the main characters' bio, what happened to her in the past, and why like she thinks the world sees her as a weird child growing up,
Okay.
and
I can get behind it. Yeah, okay.
actually, it does deal with a lot of morbid themes as well. Like you have like themes of suicide, like very dark themes. It's just a lot of crazy shit, man. But it's not really a
It's
horror.
heavy.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty heavy. Yeah, it's a lot of crazy shit, man. But it's not really a horror game. It's more like a psychological horror type of deal.
Okay. Is it more like thriller, suspenseful? It's not
Well,
so much like Outlast, where it's like a lot of it is like in your face and grotesque jump scares kind of deal, or do we still have that stuff?
yeah, I mean, you can tell that Bloober did try to put in a few jump scares every now and then. So they did try to put that horror element. But for me, like most of the jump scares, it didn't work for me. Like there was this one jump scare where I was just mad spooked. Like I was just like that one jump scare got me so far, but the other jump scares, they weren't too impactful.
No, okay.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna be moving on to Spazio Games. So this says that the medium is a step forward for Bloober Team, mature enough to propose a compelling, twisted, dark thriller with an astonishing visual art. Without one and hide sessions and with a more complex level design, it could be a more enjoyable game. Yeah,
Do you
I
feel that way? 2 hours in? Do you feel that way 2 hours in?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the level design could be a bit better. Like I think the puzzles are just a little bit too easy. Like I've heard another review say that, it's more like a walking simulator where like the puzzles are like just super easy. So
The
that's
puzzles don't feel impactful, like, they feel like, were they do they feel like that they were just designed as an afterthought or like, "Oh, we need puzzles in our game," kinda deal? Or do you think that they're just actually just, not multi-layered enough?
I mean, you're not gonna get something of the level of Legend of Zelda. Like, you're not gonna
Mhm.
get that here. Like, and I feel
Oh,
like they try to make it like special, where with the, you go into the spirit world, like just to bypass levels. Sometimes you have to go to an out of body experience, and like you have to hold a button basically, and like there's a wall blocking your path, right? So you do
oh,
an out of body experience to get
mhm.
past that world, and you find an object that can help you out in the real world.
So, like, you say that you're a Resident Evil fan, or you've played the other ones. Do they compare to the multi-layered puzzles of Resident Evil, or do you feel like this is a step below that, or several?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a step below Resident Evil in terms of like unlocking puzzles and things like that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was a sore point in my opinion, but um I really do dig the environments. The environments were just very well done, and the overall graphics of the background is really good as well. So, and I did hear good things about the story. I'm really excited to finish it, and I am planning to put my whole playthrough on YouTube, so you
Mhm.
guys can definitely look forward to that. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna be moving on to PC Invasion. And he says that although it has demanding system requirements, the medium is still a marvelous offering when it comes to its visuals and gameplay. Its locations will haunt and horrify you, and its dual reality system will provide refreshing ways to complete your objectives. Unfortunately, it also suffers from a few technical hiccups, and its bizarrely abrupt conclusion leaves a lot to be desired. Okay, so
What a review!
they're saying that the ending is like bizarrely abrupt. That's pretty interesting. I'm not sure if he says that in like in a bad way,
Mhm.
because he says it leaves a lot to be desired.
I guess it's just, the story doesn't wrap up the way, the player, or I guess the reviewer thought it would happen. I guess it feels like one of those things that it leaves you empty, or it leaves you with more questions than answers. Um, that could be my only guess, but yeah, that's a tough review.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of finesse for this review, and um, I really dig the word choice.
Hmm.
And when it talks about dual reality system, I do agree with that because like I do think that the because you're rendering two worlds at once, I really do think that's a cool mechanic, and this wasn't that dual rendering mechanic. I don't think it would have been possible on the last gen hardware.
Okay.
So for Bluebird to try this with this gen hardware, it's a definitely unique take on the gameplay.
Right now, do
And
you feel like it's a gimmick, or do you feel like it's actually like a part of the game, like a unique system in the game?
yeah, I do think it's they are trying their best. Like I feel like trying to convey how like, oh, if you do something in the spirit world, you can bypass things in the real world. Like I think that they did try their best to do something unique, but the overall puzzles, it's just not at a high level. It's just very easy puzzles. I feel like they could have done a bit better job with the puzzles.
Okay.
But there's been times when I question like the in-game cutscene choice because the in-game cutscenes, it renders in-game and you're rendering two of the worlds at the same time. And what happens is that like the frame rate, it just goes haywire. Like it just goes from like 50 FPS, drops down to 30 FPS sometimes. Like I question why they do in-game cutscenes because like that's just a bad move in my opinion. Like I think they should have made it the cutscenes only in one area. Like maybe they should
Mhm.
have made it only the spirit world. Like if something happens in the spirit world, only focus on that for the cutscene.
I see.
Yeah. All right.
Noted.
So we're gonna be moving on to this last one here. So I want to go into the positives, and I also want to go into some negative reviews. So we have here a review from Easy Allies, and they say that the medium has the medium has grand ambitious ambitions, but stumbles under the weight of them all. The story is emotionally engaging, but the environments fail to leave a memorable impact. Puzzles are repetitive and typically solve themselves, while slowly moving through the hotel loses its threatening aura. The
Mm.
medium is a great story to watch and listen to, just not to play. Yeah, that's definitely harsh, man. Like,
That's a harsh one. That one's a little tougher than the other ones. Yeah. I think that maybe the reviewer had a bad time with the dual rendering situation, and I think that that kind of impacted their opinion.
yeah, yeah. But for me, I am enjoying the game so far. I do think the dual rendering mechanic, it is pretty interesting. And hearing this reviewer saying that the puzzles are just too easy, like that kind of turns me off. It almost makes me not want to play it. But I am excited for the story. I think the story does have a lot of promise.
Okay. Well, I guess we will check back in on that when you finish the game. Hopefully, in the next couple episodes, we'll be able to have a nice little answer on how you feel about it.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll see, man. We'll see how it goes. And all right. So we're gonna be moving on to our last topic, which is
Mhm.
our biggest topic of the show. And so here we have an announcement from Google saying that they're going to be shutting down its in-house game dev studios. And so there's not going to be any more exclusive games being released for Stadia. So this is definitely a flop in my opinion. Like they looks like they are in the process of shutting down, it looks like. And so instead of focusing their efforts on making games, they want to be focusing their efforts on a streaming service that can play existing games from third-party developers. So, what's your take on this Stadia news?
Well, with them shutting down the in-house game dev studios, I mean, you're looking at, them transitioning from something a little bit more like a publisher, like Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. So I'm assuming that their goal was to join the big three with some sort of gimmick or some sort of like selling point. and this being like exclusive games that aren't able to be run on a standard console because obviously they have like a server room or like a render farm that is able to do a lot more. There's a lot more horsepower, and obviously you're streaming the game across the internet, so there's a lot more creative liberties that you can take with that. And then now they're transitioning something to more akin to like Netflix. So like, but they
Hmm.
also have a lot more competitors that have been around just a little bit longer. Um, GeForce Now,
Yeah.
Game Pass. I think Nintendo is able to be streaming games now. I'm not entirely sure about that. Double check me on that. We have PlayStation Now.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm sure there's a bunch. There's a bunch of other ones going out, coming cropping up by the day. But right now, the biggest thing is what continues to make Stadia marketable, right? Like what brings you to Stadia versus something like EA Origin, or EA Access. I don't remember what it's called.
Well,
Um,
that's just a it's kind of like a Game Pass kind of thing. It's not
mhm.
really streaming. But yeah, like you mentioned, like there is a lot of big streaming applications out there. There's I think there's also another one coming with Amazon as well in the near future. So
Luna, I think it's called.
yeah, yeah, it is Amazon Luna. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the market is definitely like it's just very
It's
vast at
starting to
this.
get
It's
it's
just
starting to get crowded.
yeah,
Let's be real
it
here. It's
is
starting to get
very
crowded.
crowded right now. Like as you said, like we have we have GeForce Now, we have xCloud and PS Now,
Yep.
and also Nintendo is planning on making a few cloud games playable. And honestly, I think Nintendo has the most potential because like they already have like their platform is like heavily reliant on like playing on the go. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like if you just want to chill on your couch and just stream games, like I feel like that's a cool idea. And we'll see if Nintendo comes out with like a revision to the Switch. Like let's see if they come up with like a 1080p display.
Mhm.
And if they make more streaming titles, like that's definitely promising on Nintendo.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, but right now Google Stadia is losing its appeal, I think, going from like exclusive games or no more exclusive games and going strictly to being a streaming service. I think they're going to lose a lot of their appeal, or what they already, don't have.
Hmm. Yeah. And so this article has some quotes of the on why the decision happened.
Hmm.
And so they said that creating best-in-class games from the ground up takes many years and significant investment, and the cost is going up exponentially. Given our focus on building on the proven technology of Stadia, as well as deepening on business partnerships, we've decided that we will not be investing further in bringing exclusive content from our internal development team. So yeah, with the industry, becoming so like with the industry becoming like so intensive in terms of
Hmm.
like when you talk about like the production quality of these games and like it kind of I think it kind of put pressure on Stadia's in-house development, like maybe they didn't have much experience developing games or
Especially if they're trying to do something that is not currently able to be done, like going into a new frontier, breaking down doors kind of deal. It's very hard to do when you're starting from scratch, like when you're the person trying to do it, right? It's a
mhm,
different story when like the Nook came out and then Amazon Kindle came out. Like obviously you're able to rely on like the competitors' past failures or as a learning experience. But nobody else is doing or nobody else is attempting to do that I'm aware of what Stadia is attempting to do. So with that on top of AAA development costs, I mean $80 million isn't the same as it used to be. a AAA game now can range anywhere from 250 million to 350 million dollars, and a big
Dang.
budget game, something along the lines of like GTA 5 is 500, 600 million dollars.
Wow.
Almost double that cost. So you're looking along the lines of like, let's just say 150 million dollars to create a game in-house, and you're looking something along the lines of like a 3 to 5 year development cycle. And Stadia has been out for 2 years now, and I'm assuming during those 2 years is a lot of it has been hiring process to create and build these development teams from the ground up with industry vets, and you're looking at like another 2 to 5 years on top of that, so you're looking at anywhere from 3 or 5 to 7 years of development time just from starting to actually, creating a product. Um, I don't know how Stadia's numbers look. I don't know. But I'm assuming that they're operating in the red. So from a business standpoint, operating in the red for potentially 7 years can get a little heavy. Especially if, you're trying to create something that's not already created. So going back to the drawing board multiple times, like pre-production phase could last over a year. Normally, it's anywhere between 6 to 8 months. Um, Rolling that up to 8 to 12 months is very taxing, and then obviously that's not even starting production. So taking the first year of your 5 to 7 year development cycle on just pre-production is that's a lot of money going down the drain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you talk about like how many data centers these guys have, like if you talk about the upkeep costs and the monthly expenses, like it must cost a lot just to run the data centers, and like you gotta have like a IT staff working constantly just to make sure that your servers are working.
Yeah.
Like if you think about all those costs, like do you think like Google should just pull the plug?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I don't know what their numbers look like, but I can only assume um from public opinion. I mean, as long as it's been out, I've never had anybody go like, "Man, you should check out this game on Stadia." Like, I'm sorry, like it is what it is. Nobody's ever said that to me, you know? So I can't imagine it being very profitable at the moment right now. So, like I said, my previous statement still stands. I still believe that, with all of these development costs, and of course, like you just brought up the data centers, so like technicians and repairmen and daily maintenance. I'm sure
Yeah.
that that's very costly as well too, and whether or not that they're having data centers strictly for Stadia versus strictly for Google, or strictly for other things, or YouTube, or this or that. I'm not entirely sure how they break that up, whether or not they're sharing data centers or just starting it up from just Stadia alone. Let's just assume that Stadia has its own data centers. I mean, you're already looking at hiring an extra staff on top of what you already have. Um, yeah, like I said, running it in the red for 5 to 7 years for one big AAA game that's like kind of like the selling point, right? It's like supposed to sell the console, except for the console is like, Stadia streaming. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's a really, really big risk. And so to me, I think that Stadia is probably Google's probably better off shutting Stadia down, or in this case, shifting it to a different business model.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. And reading this article, they also had another article, The Verge, basically had
Hmm.
another article talking about their initial vision when they first created the Google Stadia gaming division.
Yeah.
And so this article says that, they had a lot of good ambitions when they first created this this field here. They had a very good impression, and what they ended up doing was they first hired Jade Raymond, who was an ex Ubisoft and EA industry vet, and they she co-founded the Stadia Games and Entertainment division.
Hmm.
And so she says that we have a plan that includes building out a few different first party studios, including games that do things which aren't possible with today's games consoles, like full physics simulations. So, when you talk about full physics simulations, like I'm not really sure what she's coming from. Like, do you have any idea on that?
Yeah, you're talking something along the lines of like every object being able to have fully realized physics, right? So if you shoot a bullet or you throw a banana through a glass window, like all of the window cracks in a very
Hmm.
specific way. All and it'll never crack the same two ways. Water being fully realized as an object in its environment on its own and not being like mapped to certain animations or something like that. So like, whether or not you hop on a boat and go out into the ocean is irrelevant. The water is still going to be simulated each and every single time, depending on strength of wind, time of day. Um, uh, yeah, if there's a storm brewing, there's going to be a lot of things that uh, full physics simulations is very taxing to do on current hardware, whether it be on PC or even on next gen consoles. Stuff like that is possible here in Stadia because it's obviously you're able to funnel the power of multiple machines into one, so it's much easier. But like I said, this is something that is kind of not currently being done, so it's very hard to do. And going from the bottom up and paving the way is a lot of the times companies fail paving the way, and other companies that watch the first company pave the way or attempt to is the one that's more victorious. But full physics simulations, that's all of that stuff is able to be run by itself. So whether or not you drop a ball in the water, throw a banana through a windshield, drive your car specific ways, drive on snow, dirt, whether or not your tires are bald or not bald, that's all able to be rendered, simulated, and it chews out a specific number or ratio of numbers, or string of numbers, and is able to the engines to be able to calculate that and give you the correct values, and then of course in turn chew that out onto screen. So like let's just say making your car slide a specific way, and all of that stuff is you see in like driving simulated simulations, flight simulations, that kind of thing. And with Microsoft Flight Sim, it's a very very difficult game to run.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely looking like a flop for Stadia right now, and but we all have to agree that Stadia's big W in 2020 was the fact that it can run Cyberpunk 2077. But let's be real, guys, like the only reason that was a fact was because CD Projekt Red was lazy.
Hmm.
But you can say like COVID had a big deal with it too, right? Because the fact
Yes.
that they just they just basically ported the Xbox One and the PS4 versions to the PS5 and Xbox Series X. So there's not like really optimizations going on for like the Series X hardware and the PS5 hardware. And basically, because the CPU is more powerful, like you're getting much better performance, but still, like in terms of a visual standpoint, it just looks horrendous because you're using the base PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game.
Yeah, I mean, like if that's what you wanna, if that's the dub you wanna give to Stadia. But like I said, or I guess on the flip side, Cyberpunk 2077 is also available on like pretty much everything else. So whether or not Stadia's big dub is of value or more of a participation trophy is, arguable.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see what happens, man. It looks like they may end up closing down.
Hmm.
So you may hear some disappointing news from Google in the near future. And it's definitely looking very disappointing right now with Google Stadia.
Yeah, it's looking a little grim for Stadia, and obviously, I would love Stadia to be around. I would love, some new efforts in the industry, some new stuff, some new exciting experiments, and new emerging tech. But right now, I don't think it feels like it's feasible. And whether or not Google wants to continue running Stadia in the red, if they are, is entirely up to them. But I mean, like I said, the 3 to 5, a 5 to 7 year development cycle, that's a lot of money going down the drain just for, 1, 2 projects, and if they have, let's say they have like, 5 or 6 different studios, you're gonna multiply that amount by 5 or 6 times. So you can definitely see it gets very expensive very quickly. But I think for me, hearing all of this news, I think that Stadia is probably better off being shelved, maybe returned to in a later state.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And yeah, so, folks, that's all the topics we have today.
Mhm.
And we really appreciate you tuning in this far. If you really walk with us, make sure you hit the like and hit the subscribe. Make sure you share this show
Mhm.
on Twitter. And you can follow me on Twitter at the Sly Crow. And make sure you follow my guy Agent Deli. He's an awesome Twitch streamer. And yeah, did you have any other anything to add?
No, not at all. I mean, if you guys want to, if any of the viewers or anybody watching this at the moment right now agrees, disagrees, has any extra evidence, or wants to talk about it in further detail, because obviously sometimes, um, different things or what's it called? More in-depth answers come up or stuff that I didn't think about at the moment right now come up later. So just comment down below and I always sift through them and yeah, let's chat. Let's talk about some of the topics further.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, guys, this is your boy, the Sly Crow. Stay easy, stay safe, and catch y'all later. Peace.